Martin stood in his studio apartment, staring at his phone. Not at messages, he had none. Not at opportunities, those had dried up months ago. He was watching Marcus Vandeleur's Instagram story. Private jet, Monaco, a woman who looked like she stepped out of a dream. Marcus was his age, 26. They'd gone to the same state school. But Marcus had a trust fund, and Martin had student debt that felt like a gravestone around his neck. 3 weeks later, Martin was in New Orleans for a wedding he couldn't afford to attend. He'd wandered off from the hotel, drunk and bitter, when he saw the shop. Spiritual Solutions, the sign read, but underneath, in smaller letters, for those who've run out of options. The woman inside didn't look like a priestess. She looked like someone's aunt. Tired eyes, kind smile. "You want something you can't earn," she said before he even spoke. Martin laughed. Dark, empty. "I want everything I deserve and never got." She studied him for a long moment. "I can give you wealth, status, the woman, the life. What's the cost?" Her smile faded. "You'll get everything you ask for, but you won't be you anymore. Not really. You'll belong to the surface of things, never the depth." Martin should have walked away, but desperation isn't logical. "I'll take it," he whispered. She handed him a small red pouch filled with herbs, bones, and something that smelled like earth after rain. "Bury this under a tree where rich people walk. Speak your desire 3 times at midnight. Within 3 months, your life will transform." He did exactly as she said. In Central Park, under an oak tree near the east side, where joggers wore $1,000 sneakers, he spoke it 3 times. "I want wealth. I want her. I want to belong." 6 weeks later, Martin received a call from a hedge fund. They wanted him, senior analyst position, $600,000 a year plus bonuses. He hadn't applied. He didn't even have the qualifications, but somehow his resume had evolved. Degrees from schools he'd never attended, references from people he'd never met, and when they called those references, they confirmed everything. Within 2 months, Martin had the penthouse, the car, the wardrobe. And then he met Isabelle. She was at a gallery opening in Chelsea, the kind of woman who moved through rooms like she owned the air itself. Old money, diplomat father, art history degree from Oxford. She looked at Martin, and something in her eyes flickered. "You're different from the others," she said. He wasn't, that was the thing. But she believed it. Everyone believed it. Within 3 weeks, they were inseparable. Within 2 months, she'd introduced him to her world. Marcus Vandeleur remembered Martin from college. "Bro, I heard you crushed it," Marcus said at a rooftop party in Tribeca. "Welcome to the club." The club. Sebastian, the crypto billionaire who never stopped talking about disruption. Lucas, who'd inherited his grandfather's pharmaceutical empire. James, the real estate developer with politicians in his contacts. They accepted Martin instantly because he fit now. The suit, the watch, the way he held his whiskey. But here's what Martin started to notice. He couldn't remember the last book he'd read. Not because he was busy, but because the desire had vanished. He used to love jazz, used to spend Sundays at small clubs in Brooklyn. Now he couldn't sit through a single song. It felt irrelevant. His mother called. He let it go to voicemail. His college roommate reached out. Martin deleted the message. Because they didn't fit anymore. They reminded him of who he used to be, and that person felt like a stranger. One night, Isabelle was telling him about her semester in Florence, a story about getting lost in the hills of Fiesole, finding a small chapel, the feeling of being overwhelmed by beauty. "Do you ever feel that way?" she asked. "Like something just stops you?" Martin opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Because he didn't. He couldn't. He'd been to Florence twice in the last month, private tours, Michelin-starred dinners. He'd felt nothing. Isabelle's smile faltered. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," he lied, "just tired." But she saw it, the emptiness behind his eyes. Martin went back to New Orleans. The shop was gone, boarded up, a realtor's sign out front. He asked the bartender next door about the woman. "What woman?" "The priestess, the one who ran the Voodoo shop." The bartender frowned. "That place has been empty for 5 years, man." Martin's hands went cold. He started digging. His job, his resume, the hedge fund that hired him. It was all real, but it wasn't his. The degrees, the references, the accomplishments, they belonged to someone else. A man named Martin Rousseau, an analyst who died in a car accident 2 years ago. Martin had become a ghost wearing someone else's life, and the more he searched, the more he realized he couldn't go back. His old apartment, rented to someone else. His old job, position filled permanently. His old friends, they'd all moved on, as if he'd never existed. At Marcus's birthday party, a $12,000 a head dinner at a private estate in the Hamptons, Martin looked around the table. Everyone was laughing at a story Lucas was telling, something about bribing a city councilman. Isabelle squeezed Martin's hand. "You're quiet tonight." He looked at her, really looked. She was beautiful, kind, everything he'd wanted. But she didn't love him. She loved the version the Voodoo had created, the surface. "Do you even know my favorite color?" Martin asked suddenly. Isabelle blinked. "What?" "My favorite color, do you know it?" She laughed, uncertain. "Blue?" It was green, had always been green. But she was right, because he didn't care about green anymore. He didn't care about anything. Martin excused himself, walked out to the terrace. The city stretched out below, glittering, infinite. He'd gotten everything he'd asked for. Wealth, status, the girl, the life. He belonged to their world now, but he'd paid with the only thing that mattered, himself. The capacity to feel, to connect, to be moved by anything real. He was a perfect replica of a billionaire, but he'd never be whole again. Martin returned to the table. Marcus raised his glass. "To the good life, boys." Everyone cheered. Martin lifted his glass, smiled his perfect smile, and felt absolutely nothing. Martin got everything he wanted and lost everything he was. He belongs now to a world where everyone has everything and no one has anything at all. Be careful what you wish for, because sometimes the curse isn't in failing to get it, it's in succeeding.